All right, thank you so much. The program is still much alive here on Independent Television. And I did tell you that we're going to be looking at the Lassa fever as a scourge in our society and, of course, in our country today. And also, we're going to be looking at some common ailments during the Harmattan season. And I also told you that we're really going to be seeing some family preventive measures today so that as a family out there, you can really know what to do to fight against some of these ailments. Well, to discuss all this today, we are so privileged to have Dr. Leonard Atsigidi. He's a consultant, family physician, and hospital consultant with the University of Benin Teaching Hospital here in Benin State. So you're welcome to this program, Mr. on our TV.
Thank you.
Yeah, so much talk about Lassa fever and so much worry, so much concern, so much fear. What is exactly Lassa fever?
Lassa fever is a viral infection. Specifically, it's a viral hemorrhagic disease, and it's caused by the Lassa virus. It was first discovered somewhere, somewhere in Borno State, a village called Lassa. And since then, it has spread across the world. And Lassa fever is a disease that is actually carried by the multi-mammate rat. And this rat usually, the natural abode, they live in the bush. But we find that sometimes they find their way into our homes, especially during a season like this where you have so much bush burning. And again, they also, like those who dry their, food items exposed on the roads. If you are traveling, you see gari, those things. These rats sometimes also creep into those food items. They pee there, they poo there, and those excretions are actually infective. And one thing about the multi-mammate rat is that it produces so many of its kind, at a time, and these small rats get infected right from birth. And because they are infected right from birth, they themselves don't manifest any disease, but simply they are carriers. They spread these diseases, either deliberately or unknowingly to humans. And it's a very terrible disease. It's deadly. But despite it's deadly, there are simple precautions we can also take, in order to either mitigate the spread or for us to even prevent being infected. So, and right now in Nigeria, in fact, Lassa fever is spreading so wide. As at now, we are counting about 29 deaths, including 2 medical doctors.
Even more.
Yeah. And every day we keep getting, increasing figures of deaths. And, we need to understand that if for us to be able to, stop the spread or to reduce the spread of this disease, we must take precautions. For example, I don't know how we can stop bush burning so that we can allow these little rodents to live in their natural habitats. But outside that, at this time, you need to be, very cautious of what you eat. And for those of us who eat, gari a lot, ensure that your gari that you are going to, those who are preparing it, first of all, they should stop drying all these things, outside and expose them to rats to pee on and what have you. And even some who keep their foodstuff at home, ensure that they are properly stored in containers that have covers. Okay.
Now, Doctor, before we proceed to look at some of the preventive measures we can take, now we understand that the Lassa virus thing, it's one of the zoonotic diseases, meaning it's being transferred from animal to human.
Yes.
Now, just like every other virus, it's so difficult when you are dealing with a viral disease. Yeah. Now, what is that thing about the viral disease that has remained very difficult thing for medicine?
When it gets into your body, it changes its own genome and fits into your natural genome. So it starts multiplying. It starts multiplying, speedily, and it's actually difficult to control. And if you watch even like the HIV virus, it does the same thing. But for now, what we're able to do about that is that right now we're able to reduce the spread. But for LASSA, there is treatment and there is cure for Lassa fever. But the important thing is that early presentation is so key. Within the first few days, up to the first to the sixth day or thereabout, about a week, if the patient presents early, that you can have a cure. But for some other viral diseases, there is no cure. But we're lucky that actually Lassa fever can be cured.
Yeah, but what's the issue now? We understand that the number is just increasing day in, day out.
Yeah.
I'm going to let us see some of the statistics,
updated. The issue is this. Our people, oftentimes, they don't take their the state of their health serious, because it will actually mimic the common malaria that we have in our environment, and sometimes the enteric fever, the one people call typhoid fever. It presents like that. And so, but it takes a high index of suspicion for you to be able to say, this could be Lassa, because if temperature persists above 38 degrees centigrade for 2 days or more, even with antibiotics and anti-malaria, then you should begin to think that something else is happening. But what we find, before the patient presents to the doctor, they have gone to several places. They go to buy drugs across the counter. They do all sorts of self-medication. And before they now come, of course, it becomes a situation that can no longer be managed.
And perhaps it seems the greatest challenge for the patient is for him or her to really know that he or she is handling Lassa fever. Because for most of these zoonotic diseases, the symptoms are similar. You have runny nose, sore throat, headache, fever, cough, feeling of being unwell. So how does somebody now know that, okay, this is Lassa?
Like I said, high index of suspicion. Like those symptoms you mentioned, and some others like muscle ache, sore throat, and sometimes bleeding. Because once you see that you start noticing bleeding from the nostrils, from all the orifices, and sometimes from mucous membrane, you discover that you begin to suspect that this cannot just be ordinary malaria. But we don't need to wait until we get to that extent. That is why I mentioned earlier on that if you are on treatment for malaria, for 2 days or more, temperature is still on the high side, and you begin to notice these other symptoms, muscle ache, sore throat, malaria, that is feeling unwell, and what have you, you have to seek medical attention. If I don't wait until you begin to have these symptoms before you seek medical attention. Because if you present to hospital, of course we'll do a malaria parasite for you and it's negative, and maybe you are coughing and you have all these other symptoms, then we will think of something else. We will not just limit ourselves to say, okay, this must be malaria and it must be malaria. So because what our people do, like I said earlier on, is that they allow things to get out of hand before they come to the hospital or before they seek appropriate care. So it is important that you know that you have fever and you have had adequate treatment for malaria, and yet fever persists, and you've done malaria parasite, and yet there is no
improvement.
Yes, no improvement. Yeah. And of course, you have to seek medical attention. Even those who advertise paracetamol, for example, they say if after 2 days your symptoms does not improve, that you should see the doctor. But yet our people they don't bother.
Okay. Now, doctor, what is really the true story of the infection? Because there is this myth that look, for most of these ailments during the HARMATTAN, they are age specific. Once you have outgrown a certain age, you cannot be contacted. You can't contact it anymore, and also gender sensitive. So what's the true nature?
The case of Lassa is no respecter of persons. No. Whether it affects all age groups, and again, even pregnant women. Sometimes it affects even pregnant women, and of course it's very fatal when it does affect pregnant women. So there's nobody outgrows it, and now it used to be more in the of course it's still more in the dry season, But now it's something that is, you know, that spreads through all citizens in our country, you know. And some of these things, you know, outside the issue of indirect contact with the rat, I mean, excretions and what have you, there's also the issue of direct contact. For example, a man is febrile at home, the family, everybody is involved in managing the patient and all those things, and they don't take precaution. At the end of the day, you discover that by the time you find that that man has Lassa fever, it has affected the entire family and friends. And again, you discover some things we do in this part of the world, like somebody dies. Sometimes nobody bothers to find out what was the cause of death, and probably the man died of Lassa fever. Sometimes they will still do these rituals with the corpse and what have you. And in the course of doing these rituals, this virus is still very potent and alive. And those who involved in washing the corpse, sometimes they wash and give to the entire family to drink. More with the women, they give the wife, they say it's the wife that killed the man or whatever. At the end of the day, they are still busy spreading the virus. So we need to understand these things, that when somebody dies, and especially we don't know what is responsible for it, we need to be careful with that body, because that single death can kill so many other persons. So, you know, in this part of the world where we attach so many spirituality to issues, they can even say that the man came to kill all those that killed him. So not knowing that it's the disease that took the man that's
still at work.
That's still at work.
Yeah. Okay, let's look at some other ailments that we can still have during this period. So what are they?
You know, during this season, the HARMATTAN season, you know, we have this dry wind coming from the north to west, the south. And it's so dry and the humidity is low. That means the atmospheric water is low. And along with it, it carries several other microbes, viruses, you know, and other microbes. And then during this season, you discover that all of us are exposed to this dry weather. Apart from diseases, you are aware that recently in our state or in Nigeria, fire has been everywhere. And it's as a result of this dryness. Then for illnesses, common cold, respiratory infections, you know, allergy, those who are asthmatic, they tend to, you know, have more attacks this period. And you also discover that even sickle cell patients, they also have more crisis during this period. Because, like I said, the weather is dry, and because the weather is dry, you discover that even because we are exposed to this dry weather, we lose a lot of water. And for the sickle cell patient, this is a terrible time for them too. So we need to, again, understand all this, so that because the weather is cold, you need to adapt or change your clothing. At least wear something that will preserve some heat. You know, maybe the cardigan for your children when they are going to school. Then for others, you can put on a suit, especially at this time. Yeah,
but most times we still breathe in this cold air.
Yes, and we also advise that, you know, that if you can use a mask.
A nose mask.
A nose mask.
Okay.
For this period.
Okay.
But if you know you can tolerate it, well. But for those who are at high risk of some of these infections I mentioned, you need to just have a nose mask.
Okay. Now, some will say that you can drink a lot of water this period.
Yeah, it's important that this period you drink a lot of water, because as you are losing water, you need to replace it. Otherwise, you become dehydrated.
Okay. Okay. Now, let's see something that I checked this morning really captured my interest. Talking about the updates of LASSA in the country. It's somehow... one is almost tempted to ask the question if the government is doing anything. You know, it's very, very, you know, worrisome to know that something seems to be on the increase. Now, what we have here is within the first few weeks of January. As a matter of fact, this is the last week of January. So this data coming in from the National Center for Disease Control. That's the Nigeria Center for Disease Control in Abuja. Now, what we have here is that for this month only, we are told that about 379 suspected cases, while 141 confirmed cases of LASSA.
Yeah.
Then we also read that 33 cases of death, and you know, that amounts to about 23.4%. Now, what is really going on? Is it that government is not doing enough, or people seem not to even care that there's actually LASSA?
You see, both sides are culprits in terms of this, the issues we have at hand. For now, I'm not aware if there is any other center in the South where Lassa fever can actually be treated apart from ISTH.
In Era?
Yes. And I think we need to be proactive, though we don't leave things for government alone. So individuals who can also support government, we need to begin to expand our centers. Then outside that, most of the blame actually goes to our people. Because if you are aware of what is responsible for a particular outbreak that leads to death, then we need to take precaution, and we need to do a lot of, what do I call it now? Media sensitization. You know,
just like what we are doing here.
Just
now.
like what we're doing.
Yeah.
And again, we need to also warn people about these issues of bush burning, and you know, and we also need to inform the people that you must, at this particular time, take particular interest in eliminating the rats in your environment, especially in your house.
But I think that also have, don't you think that has its side effect too? Take, for example, somebody that goes to the market to buy some of the disease that kill rodents. The person may misuse it, and that may lead to something else.
well, a lot of things can happen, you know. For those who have suicidal tendencies, they could consume it.
Exactly.
Beyond that, just what do you call this, pussycat? Pussycat feeds on rats a lot.
Are you suggesting that?
Yes, I'm suggesting that you can have.
Even you, a doctor?
Yes, you can have. Yes, you can have pussycat on your ceiling.
Yeah.
And it consumes.
But the pussycat can become wild.
When it becomes wild, you kill it.
Then you get another one.
Yes, because like, for example, in my community where I come from, where you are also from.
Yeah.
So,
but we don't believe that,
so, but what we must do, you know, on a very sincere note, is that we must do everything that we need to do to eliminate this rats.
Okay.
Everything. And there are other things we use like gum. You know, I see them selling these traps.
Gum, yeah.
You know, you can buy traps. You can buy this gum they use. You know, put it in strategic places so you can actually kill these rats. For the rat killer drugs they sell, you put it in your ceiling. Better in your ceiling than to put it in your kitchen, so that the rat will not carry it and go and drop it in your soup or in your whatever. So we need to, again, while we are using those things, we also need to take caution.
Okay.
You know, there are everything that we use has some moderation.
Okay. Now, let's, because, you know, something actually caught my interest. At times, I just drive around and I see some of the markets around. Take, for example, the woman that sells gari. You know, at the end of the day, she just covers the gari somehow and puts it under the table in the market and all that. Now, at night, these rodents, they run around. They feast on them and all that. So in that kind of, well, what I'm saying is that for us, you know, in the home front, we could want to practice some preventive measures. But you discover that where we get these food items from are really not safe. So that's
yes, that's
so
why I talked about this advocacy, and that's why I talked about media enlightening the people. Because, you know, if you throw stone in the market, into the market, we will know who that stone will hit. For those who sell some of these food items not properly preserved, and you sell it,
not properly covered at the end of each sale.
Yes, you discover that you may not know who's going to consume that same food, especially when you consume it the way it is, like gari, you soak it and all those things. You may not know who's going to consume it. Maybe your brother who's in Abuja or somewhere else. So we need to imbibe this culture of being our brother's keeper. Because if you know that whoever consumes that food and the person dies as a result of consumption of that food, that you are guilty in the sight of God. So we need to let our people know that they must, and of a necessity, ensure that these food items they sell they cover it, even not just at the end of the day, even during sales. Because like Gary you talk about, sometimes you go to market, you discover that they are displayed in open basins and, you know, without covering them. And even at that time, they are still, those food items are still exposed. And for those who prepare this gari right from the villages and what have you, it is better to fry this gari, dry it on fire.
And even other food items too, like
yam, to spread it on the road, so that it gets dried and what have you. And they are doing that as a way to, to hasten the process, or to be able to prepare many at a time. But the life of your neighbor is more important. So they should, endeavor to get this gari dried on fire instead of going to dry it outside. And some of these other food items, like we consume, including vegetable. Yesterday I read people were talking about suya, because if you, like some of those papers they actually use, if they are contaminated, of course you can also get it. So, and those of us who like fruits, ensure that when you buy your fruits, wash them properly.
Okay.
Don't just buy fruit from anybody and just start eating. You must wash. And I usually advise people that oranges that are already peeled, that are displayed here and there, for me, I will consume any. So instead of, if I want an orange, I will buy it, wash it, and peel it myself before I take it.
Okay.
So we need to take all these precautions, because self-preservation is key.
Okay, now the first time that the issue of Lassa fever actually came to the notice of the health authority in Nigeria was actually sometime in 2007, and from then till 2020 now, that's about 13 years. Now, one would have expected that by now we should have vaccines that we can take, not just for Lassa fever, perhaps for other ailments during this Harmattan period.
Okay. You see, the issue is that some of these things actually take time. And
13 years?
Yes.
I mean, for a public health issue?
What about HIV? HIV has been more than that. So scientists, they are doing their job, they are working, and you should know that some of these things involve even human experiment. And it's certainly going to take some time for us to get a vaccine, if there's going to be any. So, and until there's a breakthrough, for now, what we simply need to do is to be aware of preventive measures. Prevention, they say, is better than cure. So if we take these steps, and for the few cases that may still contact the disease, of course, they should present early to hospital. And this idea of our people never going to hospital until the situation is getting out of hand should be discouraged completely. Even if you have a headache and you take paracetamol, it doesn't go, the next thing, visit a doctor. Not visiting shops to purchase drugs you don't even know anything about. So that the doctor will look at you properly and be able to, fashion out what may be wrong with you.
Okay. Now, doctor, one more time on family preventive measures, one more time quickly.
Now, like I said, you must ensure that in your home, all your food items are properly preserved. You cover the containers. Ensure you wash your hands, before you eat. When you go to work, as you are coming home, wash your hand before you begin to even greet your people. And at this time, if you are coughing, ensure that you sneeze into your sleeve, not into your palm. Because you may now again spread, if you have any ailment, you may spread it to others. So we need to also take precaution for those who are allergic. Ensure that you use a nose mask. And for this weather, please put on the appropriate clothing. Your children who go to school, ensure they put on a cardigan, and that helps to keep them warm while they are in school. Then for those of our friends, our family members who does preparation of these food items they eventually bring to town for people to consume, ensure that you do it under a hygienic environment for the sake of your fellow brother who's in town. And again, make sure that rats in your environment, they are eliminated. Those who are burning bushes, hunting for rats, please, it is dangerous for you to consume these rats.
Okay. All right, thank you so much, Doctor, for finding time to join us today on the program this morning on ITV. Thank you so much. And please, for viewers out there, you need to know that the issue of Lassa, it's a very serious one, so you must make sure that you just have your own ways of preventing yourself, prevent your children, prevent your family, so that you don't contact this. Now, a recent report from the National Center for Disease Control reveals that about 64 cases in the first 2 weeks of 2020 has been resulted across the country, and we're told that in about 6 major states, which include Ondo, Edo State, Taraba, Plateau, and Bauchi State. Now, I actually went ahead to see the plotting on the graph, and also represented, with a map of Nigeria where Edo State is already, colored with red. It goes to show that we have Lassa fever in Edo State here, particularly in Edo, obvious northeast, and some local governments in Edo State. So please, I think preventive measures should be taken to see that we really contain and curtail this spread of Lassa fever and for other ailments that we have during the Harmattan season. Doctor, thank you one more time.
It's a pleasure.
All right, we'll take a short pause now so that we can join other segments of this program this morning on ITV. Please stay tuned.